Guys, MMA Fighting gave Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jedrzejczyk the honors of Fight of the Year 2020. I couldn't agree more. Nick and I are talking about that amazing fight right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So I think if any award was to be given out that for me was just a surefire, I knew who it should go to. Even back when I saw the fight in March, I said nothing's going to top this year.
Yeah.
Joanna Jedrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang. Forget the best female 115 fight. That was one of the best fights of all time.
Absolutely.
One of the most entertaining fights I have ever seen.
Yeah, that had us all on the edge of our seats from start to finish. And, the visual of Joanna's face and all of that is like something I'll never forget.
No.
And there was some amazing fights this year, but it wasn't like the Fighter of the Year award where we were coming down to the last pay-per-view, the last cards of the year to decide who was going to get the nod on that. And there was a great race for that, but this felt to me like it was the most sure thing as far as fights that deserve to win an award.
Yeah.
And this award is pretty it's a pretty cool one to win, and it's the most official body of what do you call it, like presentation that you can possibly get. Like whoever these guys say wins the Fight of the Year wins the Fight of the Year. And I think MMA fans all could have gathered together and just said that this was the best Fight of the Year. I loved that fight, and I want to see it again.
Yeah, it's cool to have an award, but like you said, this was to me and to most MMA fans out there, I think there was no award that needed to be given. It was known who had the best throwdown of 2020, and thank God for that fight, because it was the co-main event on the dumpster fire that ensued thereafter, which was Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero.
Yeah.
You know how much I love Israel Adesanya. Him and Romero should have cut a check to these two ladies for what they did, because obviously everybody's buying the card for Izzy. He's the biggest name on the bill, and he's got there a great dance partner, or what we thought would be a great dance partner in Yoel Romero. But to be quite honest, if I was either one of those two guys, I wouldn't feel too good about myself, having seen those two 115-pound women get in there and just absolutely duke it out. I mean, we're talking about, this was such a close fight. And I went back and watched it in preparation of doing this video last night. I still don't know who won that fight. I mean, they gave the fight to Weili Zhang. When you look at all things considered, Weili landed 160-something significant strikes, 96 to the head. Joanna landed 180-something significant strikes, also 96 to the head. These girls punched each other in the face significantly, which who knows what the definition of that even really is. I mean, I've been hit by some people with a jab that was pretty significant that they wouldn't call a significant strike. Nevertheless, 100 hard punches to the head. As you said, Joanna looked like some sort of creature. I always say that she looked like the Dementor from Jingle All the Way. If you guys have ever seen that Christmas movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
perfect comparison.
There's a reference for you. If you haven't, look up Dementor, and you'll see the giant brain guy that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what she looked like. And I think, all things considered, if I was I'll try to put myself in the judge's shoes. If I'm watching that fight and I'm trying to say who I think won, I probably would have given it to Weili Zhang as well. And I'll tell you why. It's only one reason. It's because she landed the shots that looked like they did more damage. Everything else was equal. But Joanna would come in on these crazy exchanges, and she would finish with like a great low calf kick or finish with a great shot to the head, and Zhang would just be right there. You know, just take it, not take a single step back. And then some of the exchanges where Zhang got the better of Joanna, it did back Joanna up a little bit. You could see the visible pain that those shots caused, and it caused her to circle away and then try to re-engage. That, to me, if I'm making an honest, fair assessment, was the only difference in that fight. Yeah. It could have been a draw otherwise. I wouldn't have been unhappy if it had been a draw. Yeah,
and I'm not a huge fan of draws, but that fight deserved to be a draw in my opinion. And you can't blame the judges that are watching at ringside. You know, they don't get the up-to-date shot by shot, and like they don't know how many punches were landed to the head, how many total, how many significant, all of that stuff. They're watching a fight, and they have to judge it round by round. And the visual is what they're watching. And when you see two girls both land 4 shots on each other, yeah, you can kind of chalk that up as even Steven. But when one of them stumbles away from it a little bit and the other one, stands strong like a brick wall, it just plays into the brick wall's favor.
Yeah.
That, okay, they're not getting as affected by these shots.
Right.
Maybe they are landing the same amount, but there's some power behind these that are a little bit more severe for the opponent. I think Joanna fought her heart out. I don't think there's somebody in the sport that has lost 3 or 4 out of her last 5 or 6 fights.
I'd have to look at her exact
stock
record.
Continues to go up and is still going to find herself in championship fights and main event, co-main event slots. And she deserves it.
Well, those L's are to like Valentina Shevchenko,
Rose Namajunas,
right? Weili Zhang. Like Joanna doesn't have any easy fights from here until the end of her career, and she certainly hasn't had an easy road in the last couple of years.
And she's going the distance with Valentina. She's going the distance with Weili. She's, in some people's eyes, winning that fight. And I do believe that we need to see Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jedrzejczyk at least one more time.
Oh yeah, that could be a trilogy.
I'm one of those people where it sits with me like the Max Holloway Volkanovski thing. Like, I want to see that a third time, even though it's not a 1-on-1 and we need a rubber match. Even if Weili Zhang wins the next one, I could still watch them fight again.
No.
And it's them two and Rose Namajunas at 115, and then everybody else is a significant step behind them.
Yeah.
There's some up-and-comers that are really promising, and I think in the next couple of years they're going to be right there in the mix with them. But as of right now, those three are at the top of the heap, and they should just keep round-robining until we figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Rose showed you what she can do. Yeah. I mean, Joanna's got a chin on her. Mm-hmm. And then it actually makes what Rose did that much more impressive, knocking Joanna out. Because when you saw the amount of volume, and as I said, 96 significant strikes to the head of Joanna Jedrzejczyk, and she didn't hit the canvas.
Yeah.
And then Rose knocked her out. I mean, that shows you what type of power Rose is working with. You look at Weili Zhang when she fought Jessica Andrade. Mm-hmm. She demolished her. That was like a Khamzat Chimaev type of performance, just come across the cage and start you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for Joanna to be able to take all those shots, one, I think it shows you what type of an amazing chin Joanna has, but two, just how much power does Rose Namajunas have?
Right.
I mean, when you look at Rose, and that's why the eye is always misleading. You wouldn't say, oh, yeah, she's a world-class knockout artist, but after that fight that I watched, and then to think of what happened the first time her and Joanna fought, maybe she is.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at her and then you look at a picture of Weili Zhang, you say which one of these has one-punch knockout power, or you watch a video of them.
They both do, actually. Yeah,
they both do, but you would assume Weili Zhang is the one. She's kind of built like a tank.
Yeah,
and just looks like a stone-cold killer. Rose looks like a little bit different, but looks are very deceiving. And I would love to see Rose versus Weili at some point. I think that's the fight they're going to go with next. But Joanna has not slipped, in my opinion.
No.
I think she deserves the winner of that fight. I think there's some unfinished business there with Weili, and even still with Rose, I think there's still a good fight there. And maybe we'll see Joanna move to 125 permanently at some point. But for right now, I think 115 is a good place for her. I think that it's one of the most interesting divisions right now it's not just women, but there's some really cool things that could happen at the top of that. And Weili is just undeniable. I think that what they're doing with her, marketing her, and how big martial arts is in Asia, and how the UFC
Chinese market is huge. They have a performance institute now in China.
Yeah, I think that's smart, and they've got a real talent on their hands that they can explode into a worldwide star in Weili Zhang. So if she can keep beating these great opponents, then I think we have a real star on our hands.
I couldn't agree more. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think if you're wanting to keep your eyes on regions of the world, Asia and Africa, and the next, and what Khabib's doing in Russia,
that's
with going home and having his stable there. I mean, but the Russians have always been top notch. But
in the UFC, America's always been represented well. Brazil's always been represented well. And now it seems like we're going to have a few more powerhouse countries, like you said, Russia, Asia. Or not really just Asia, but China
in specific,
and I think there's a couple other countries, all the big countries in Africa,
Nigeria, Cameroon. You've got Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman. So some really, really interesting. It's interesting to watch the unfolding of MMA, because it's like, as you said, it was forever. It was Brazil and America. It was like almost like a rivalry. Which country could have the most champions. And every now and then you have a George St. Pierre from Canada. But,
Right.
it's really, I think China is a place to look for future stars.
Yeah.
Weili Zhang, I think, is a current star.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think that the three of them, Rose, Weili, and Joanna, should just figure it out amongst each other. It's almost like how Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, and Cody Garbrandt were for a minute there. It's like one would beat the other and then come back. And so it might be like a round robin sort of situation. I think with that performance, Joanna could sit on her hands if they do make Rose versus Weili and just wait for the winner of that and be the undeniable challenger. But knowing Joanna, I don't know that she'll do that. She'll probably take another fight. But I favor her pretty much against anybody that's not
those two.
I might even favor her against those two, depending. But anybody that's not one of those two, I think Joanna pieces up. And I think Weili, a lot of people are talking about Weili going up to 125 to challenge Valentina. I kind of think that might be a mistake. I think that Valentina would win that fight. Weili has tremendous power, but so does Valentina.
Yeah.
In my mind, Valentina is the most put together female fighter on the planet skill-wise. The only reason that Amanda Nunes has found success and been able to beat her is just simply a size difference.
Yeah.
The skill sets are similar, and you have a massive size difference. But I would say Valentina's skill set is probably better just skill for skill than Amanda, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think with Zhang, you have this building star. You have this 115 monster. It's a great Chinese champion. I wouldn't be in a rush to send her up to fight Valentina.
Yeah, if she has the skills to clean out the 115 division, leave her there, let her do it.
Yeah.
Joanna doesn't really have much business with anybody from the top three back because she's kind of beaten all of them. And anybody she hasn't, it's not really worth her while to go back and fight some no-names. So I think she has business at the top of the heap exclusively, and then maybe some big fights at 125 again. Weili, if she can get through a bunch of the girls at 115 that are coming up, and there's some dogs that are on their way up, then maybe we can see her make some super fights, and it would make it more of a super fight if she could defend that title a few more times.
No, I agree 100%. I think she should do just how Izzy did it.
Yeah.
Stay in that division, clean it out, maybe beat a couple people twice or one person. Maybe you can get past Joanna twice.
Yeah.
Okay, then you can say
beat Rose.
I'm ready to
beat
challenge
all the champions that the divisions had.
Exactly. And I think she's got the skills to do it. And I'm not saying at some point in the future she wouldn't. I think she'd be a good challenge for Valentina right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think she would win that fight.
No.
Maybe a couple of years down the line, who knows?
Yeah.
People develop very quickly, and Weili Zhang is extraordinarily dedicated at her craft.
Yeah.
She came out of nowhere. And I remember watching her a couple of years ago, and I said, this girl's going to be a champion.
Yeah.
You can see the dedication. You can see the coach, like the people around her. Everything was right. It's like with Kamaru Usman when he was going on that tear. I said, it's only a matter of time before he becomes a champion. I felt the exact same feeling with Weili Zhang.
Yeah, they have that undeniable type of vibe that they just ooze out of them, and you can feel it watching them fight. And even when they're on the prelims and they're on the undercards and stuff, you're like, that person's they're going to take leaps and bounds, and then eventually we're going to see them headlining cards.
Well, because skills, and that's why I'm so hot on Khamzat Chimaev. It's like, people say, well, he hasn't really fought anybody yet. And that's true. He hasn't really fought anybody of substance yet. But skills are skills.
Right.
And when you see a fighter who's skilled doing certain things, it doesn't matter. It does matter to an extent who they're doing it against.
Yeah.
However, you can see a real, true skill set. And that's what I saw in Usman, what I saw in Weili Zhang, and now what I see in Chimaev. But I do think that Weili Zhang has the potential to be a megastar.
Yeah,
I mean,
and with the Khamzat Chimaev thing, it's such a good point that people need to realize is, he is, everybody in the UFC is a good fighter, an elite level fighter. And people are like, oh, well, he did what he did to 3 opponents in 6 minutes, took 2 shots in those 3 fights total. 1 punch knockout power, complete total domination on the ground for the other 2 guys in 2 weight class. But he's not doing it against anybody. It's like, well, there's only 500 or 600 people on the UFC's roster, and he's doing it to 3 of those guys.
Yeah.
And just because he hasn't done it to Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards, some of the top guys, doesn't mean he's not an absolute monster. And you know what? If he does do it, then he's head and shoulders above everybody else, and it's not going to be very competitive once he does get the belt.
Right.
Because if he can go in there and mollywop Leon Edwards like he did Gerald Mearshart and Rise McKee, and he can do that to Kamaru Usman, then what is he doing? It's really not that competitive of a sport for him, and it's going to look like boxing. I do think that Khamzat Chimaev is going to have some amazing fights in this year and in the years to come, but he's an undeniable talent. And that's why we keep winding up talking about him.
It's
even
crazy.
On videos
I'm telling you what, we're talking about Weili Zhang and Joanna Jedrzejczyk, and somehow Khamzat Chimaev comes up. But you're so right. I mean, the UFC only has a few hundred fighters. Everybody's a good fighter.
Right.
There's a few hundred MMA fighters in Houston alone where we live. There's like probably a couple hundred people that fight MMA professionally here.
Right.
So when you talk about one city, albeit a major city, how many pro fighters there in Dallas? How many pro fighters are there in Austin? How many pro fighters are there in San Antonio? I'm just talking about the drivable region here, New Orleans.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you rise to the top several hundred, don't tell me that that's not a good fighter.
Yeah.
Everybody's a good fighter. There's a lot of good fighters that aren't in the UFC.
Right.
You know,
Tons.
so I agree 100% with you there. But back to Zhang and Joanna, I agree. I want to see this be a trilogy. I'd like to see the next fight go Joanna's way or even be a draw. One, because I'm just such a huge Joanna fan. I mean, Joanna champion. She was, when you talk about the Mount Rushmore of female fighters who really brought it to the mainstream, you have Ronda Rousey on there. You have Amanda Nunes on there. In my opinion, you have Valentina Shevchenko on there. And if you've got room for a fourth, it's Joanna and
somebody's
Jedrzejczyk.
got to represent the strawweights, and I think she is the person.
Absolutely. Well, guys, let us know in the comments. Did you enjoy this fight as much as we did? I know that pretty much everybody thought it was fight of the year. Recency bias. Some people said Moreno versus Davison Figueiredo, but I still think this one takes the cake, even though it was all the way back in March.
I agree.
So, guys, let us know. As always, we really appreciate you watching the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts. Until the next one, have a great day.
Peace.